From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin Energy.
The vitamins.
The energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, the latest pivot for the ACC and FSU does little to change the landscape of the conference, but maybe a firmer timeline has formed. Takeaways from yesterday's interviews with a quartet of defensive transfers, and men's hoops limping and Leonard losing a path forward. Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it, take it, sip the juice. World's first clinically tested, clinically proven, only clinically proven energy shot. Does more than just give you the energy, folks. Improving the focus, improving the mood, improving the immune response, the pump in the gym. Aslan's Vitamin Energy giveaway has come to its conclusion, Corey Clark. Mailed out all 4 boxes, quite literally from Tally to Cali, almost. Somebody was in Oregon. 2 of the dudes were in Tallahassee. I think the other person was in South Florida. Get this, Corey. I live in Tallahassee. Mailed out the package to Tallahassee and tracked it. It's currently in Jacksonville. Explain that to me.
Man, who knows? Who knows how any of it works anymore?
Anyhow, enjoyed everybody. I think everybody got the Immune Plus, I think is what I sent out. And we'll see how it all goes, everybody. Once this football team starts winning football games, maybe we can get we can get nice things again.
Yeah.
Like buying one and getting one free. But in the meantime, you can't go wrong. vitaminenergy.com, 14-day clinical trial. Everybody said awesome things about it. Join the revolution. Corey Clark, how are you, man?
I'm good, buddy. Thursday was a busy day. We had interviews at 11. Then we had obviously the I guess it's news. It's sort of news. The stuff on the periphery is the news part of it. Of ESPN extending their rights with the ACC until 2036, which was not a stunner. Maybe some other reporting within that is, and we'll get to that here in a second. We got the basketball team to talk about, buddy. A lot of good things. A lot of baseball's around the corner. I think softball starts next week. It's a busy time.
All right. Well, let's pick it up there again, I guess, with the conference realignment talk. Wake Up Warchant, your one-stop shop for it. I kind of jest, but warchant.com is. Gene Williams, Tom Lang, Ira Schofel got you covered with kind of breaking down what this all means. So, Corey, when I first saw it, and I think it was like the retweet from Ross Dellinger talking about the conference and ESPN have gone ahead and agreed to extend the contract and come to I think a settlement was I saw settlement and I'm like ooh, so they're gonna let us off, like we out of here. It's all over. The long national nightmare is over.
Other way around, buddy.
Yeah. So apparently, in my amateur interpretation of this and kind of talking to some people around it, it sounds like maybe some concessions in terms of a settlement. It's more along the lines of Florida State, Clemson wanting X, Y, and Z. Obviously, they want to get out of this. They still want to get out of the conference. They want the grant of rights to be over. They don't want to get hundreds of $millions in a penalty fee, and they want to be able to take their media rights with them to wherever they can land. Not sure if that's going to work out as intended, but it's more along the lines of, okay, unequal distribution of revenue, which would then favor the larger brands, the football teams, Florida State, Clemson. But that's still probably not enough to make up the gap, and it certainly doesn't seem enough to make anybody feel better about things, judging by the reception on the message boards. Because Ross Dellinger's getting information, I assume, from Charlotte, Corey, Andrew Adelson, and David Hale are getting information from Bristol. And then Warchant.com is getting you information from people connected here in Tallahassee. So everybody's got their horse in the race, and they're trying to protect their horse, I guess you could say. What have you kind of taken away from what happened on Thursday?
Yeah, I think the news is that according to, Dellinger and Hale and Adelson are dialed in. These are not like newcomers. This is not some blogger in West Virginia. These people know what they're talking about, and they've talked to the right people. I don't think they're just throwing stuff at the wall. I think that the news is that Florida State and Clemson would drop their lawsuits if X, Y, and Z were to happen. The if is the big part here. Like, if Florida State and Clemson can be guaranteed that because they're the two big boys in the conference, and again, I get it, man, 2-10 is 2-10. 13-0 is 13-0 too, and they were left out of the playoff. So enough. Florida State is the brand in this conference, Florida State and Clemson. Florida State is one of the big boys anyway, so we don't have to relitigate what happened last year. It was a disaster of a season. But Florida State is a school that matters. Clemson is a school that matters. Miami and North Carolina, sort of. Nobody else. And on the national radar, nobody else. So anyway, if the reporting is accurate, there is a brand value that is part of the contract talks, which Florida State and Clemson would, according to Dellinger and David Hale Adelson, Florida State and Clemson would agree to perhaps, I'm couching all this because we haven't really heard from Florida State's side, not on the record anyway, that Florida State would agree to drop their lawsuit and settle if they were guaranteed a better cut of the TV revenue than what they currently get. Now, is that going to get them close to Florida? Probably not. But it gets them closer. Instead of $40 million behind, they're $20 million behind. And you might laugh and say, well, that's great. They're still $20 million behind. Yeah, true, but it's better than 40. And what I wonder, Aslan, is would Florida State and Clemson be willing to take a settlement like this? Number one, if it's not anything of substance. Like if it's just like an extra $3 million in this brand fund that ESPN wrote about, where and I don't know. There's a lot of complexities into how that would be valued, but it's TV metrics, it's viewership, it's fan base, it's all that kind of stuff. But if that were to happen and it's only for $3 million, well, then what's the point? Why would you do that? Get out. Even if the Big Ten doesn't want you, even if the Big Ten says no, get out and go to the Big 12 just to collapse the ACC. Just to say screw. So I don't think they would just settle if it. I really, maybe I'm naive, man. I've never been in a multi-million, almost billion-dollar settlement negotiations before. I don't think Florida State would settle if it wasn't in their best interest. Now, best interest in terms of what they can get. Maybe Big Ten told them, "Don't worry, man. We're not coming. We're not going to come after you until 2031 at the earliest, anyway." Maybe that was something they heard in the back channels because I think that's when the Big Ten SEC deals are done. Right. Is around 2031, right? So I think Florida State and Clemson, according to the reporting, are also asking to be able to get out of the grant of rights by 2031. Right?
Yes.
So maybe right now, getting out of the grant of rights in 2026, they don't have a home. And then what? And so this might be the best option in a bunch of bad options. And it's not great, but if you can squeeze some more juice out of the orange and get more money, and I mean literally, like the Syracuse does nothing for this program, and this conference, and they won 10 games last year. If you can start getting more money than the schools that do nothing for this conference, then do it. That would be, and that if they can figure out a way, and I don't know how they would do it. I don't know how you would even go about saying we deserve $15 million a year more than Wake Forest, even though they beat us on the football field because of this. But if they can do that, then yeah, I guess that's what you got to do. It's not great news, though, because it would appear if Florida State and Clemson are willing to settle, it just kicks the can down the road for 5 more years. So it guarantees you're in this conference for 5 more years. And last year at this time, we had pie-in-the-sky hopes. I don't even think they weren't foolish. I think they were realistic that you'd be out of the conference by this time next year. Yeah, and you'd be going to the Big Ten. Like, that was the hope. And now you're kind of just, had all your hope drained, and you've learned that the administration, who has not spoken yet, but it's also been very early. None of this – it's official that the ESPN and ACC have signed ESPN has agreed to go to 2036. They signed that contract. But there's been no lawsuits that have been settled. So for now, it's still ongoing. But the fact that there's a chance that you might settle and stay in the conference is not something Florida State fans are going to be excited about. Not in the immediacy, anyway. Yeah, in full disclosure, I think Ira's working on something right now. I don't think it's been published yet, but I assume that's going to create a lot more clarity on this. So subscribe. Well, by the time people are listening to this, it'll probably be up there. Right. Something. It's just that it seems like people in the Florida State corner are really bullish about the lawsuit. They haven't had any expectation or any reason to feel that they've lost any kind of momentum. They have, when they've been having their hearings in Leon County, everything's kind of been tilted. I don't want to say tilted. Everything's been falling in their favor, seemingly. So I can't imagine they'd want to walk away from the momentum they've created there to get, as to your point, like a
$3, $4, $5 million more. The two things that do stand out, and I think in David Hale's reporting was talking about it too, and you mentioned, again, the contract for the Big Ten ends after the academic year, so 2029, 2030, and then the contract will end. I think SEC is somewhere around there too. David Hale's reporting basically just says, like, this keeps everything pretty honky-dory for the next 5 to 6 years, which is all you can ask for in this landscape. So, maybe the ACC even recognizes we can't think, the 2037, 2039, whatever number in the contract with ESPN, the renewal, like they're not thinking that far ahead. It's just like, let's just get 5 years down the road to where we can keep this thing sustained. Because I'm sure everybody else in the conference is mostly fine with it. Because what's Wake Forest's option? What's Virginia Tech's option?
Boston College, Virginia, like they don't matter. They just don't matter in the only sport that does matter anymore. And so and I wonder if you polled Florida State fans and said, would you rather them go through with the lawsuit and see where it goes and how long it takes and all the money you might have to spend as a buyout, or would you rather have a settlement that guarantees that the grant of rights actually you were able to get out of the contract penalty-free after the 2030 season?
Or like significantly lesser penalty.
Or maybe it's penalty-free. But so then it's like, okay, I guess you if you started doing the math, and let's say the ACC was going to charge you $120 million to leave right now, but in 5 years it'll be $15 million. Well, you saved $105 million. Would you make that up? What is that in trying to get into the Big Ten?
Well, the problem is you're going to be $30 million behind Florida and Alabama and Georgia each single year. So, 4 years are going to be $120 deficit to those universities.
Right.
So it almost
But
becomes
the money
a
is the
wash.
money, right? Like if you're having to spend the money that you get, the extra $30 million a year you would get from the Big Ten, all of that's going to pay the buyout to the ACC.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the extra money, the extra revenue that's coming in is going for the lawsuit. So in the long term, it's fine because who cares in 2041? Will there even be college football in 2041? No idea. It might just be a minor league system. But for right now, the short-term prognosis for Florida State is not ideal. It's not ideal, but I was listening to Jeff's show on Thursday, and I sent him a joking text like, hey, man, I listened to your first hour, and I went and drank bleach. So tell Stephanie I love her. Please look in on her and take care of her and Brady every now and again. Just check in on them, see how they're doing. Because the reality is, and I'm not trying to paint the silver lining here, because I don't want to be in this conference anymore either. The thought of like the SEC schools coming to Tallahassee, getting to play an Ole Miss and an Arkansas and a Texas every year would just be awesome.
He drops Arkansas. He doesn't even bother talking about like Neyland or
no. I'm just like those fan bases,
right.
Man. They just care, and it energizes the city to have those types of games. Boston College, Virginia, Wake, Syracuse, they don't energize the city. They just don't. It's a different feel. So anyway, that would be awesome. Even the Big Ten, yes, you got some Northwesterns and Purdue's and thrown in there. Indiana's not accounting this year. But by and large, they got some big-time football programs, too, that would love to come to Tallahassee, and their fan bases would, too. So anyway, that disappoints me if this is the reality for the fans. For the team itself and for the program, yes, if you're in this thing for another 10 years at 40, losing 35 to 40 million a clip, and we don't know what this new contract with ESPN looks like. There are no details.
Right.
So we have no idea exactly how much Florida State has shaved off from the revenue deficit, if at all. If they were willing to settle, I'd have to agree. I'd have to think there's no way they'd settle if they didn't get some sort of a compensation for doing so. It just wouldn't make sense. But say you get it to $20 million a year that you're behind. Well, all right, okay. I can promise you this. SMU and Indiana spent way less money than Florida State did this year on their football program. Way less money in everything you can imagine. They made less money. They have less resources. They have 30,000 people that come to their games typically. Like Florida State spent a whole lot more money, and those teams made the playoff. You could argue, Aslan, and again, this is a playoff structure question, and when you're coming off 2-10, it's hard to see that as any kind of goal or anything you really care about. But would it be easier for Florida State to get in the playoff in 2029 in the ACC or the SEC or the Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say because I don't know exactly how that format's going to look like, but I get it. I mean, yes, this conference, Wake and Pitt and Syracuse and Virginia Tech seems a lot more palatable than Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, and LSU. Or Michigan, Ohio State, Southern Cal.
USC, Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon. So.
Yeah, but you programs that care, man. Wisconsin cares. They haven't been all that great in a while, but they care. You've got programs that really care in those conferences. And look, I know that we want to talk about, and this is just it angers me so much about what we just went through in 2024 because it's just inexcusable how bad that team was. Would all of this be different if they had just gone 9-3? Not asking for the world with that schedule to go 8-4 or 9-3, but 2-10, you lose a lot of leverage. It feels like you shouldn't, because we all need to think about, like, historically, a 40-year sample size, a 50-year sample size is more important than 9 months. But still, what an awful time to be suing a conference and saying you're too good for the conference, and then you go fall flat on your effing face and win one game in the conference, and you barely do that. You were just it was an embarrassing season. But the point of the matter of it, the matter that I'm trying to get to is that if you're good this year, you're in the playoff. The SEC, you could have a good ACC team that, man, you play Ole Miss, LSU, and Tennessee back to back. Well, all right, well, there go your playoff hopes. If you're in the top 2 in the ACC, you're going to get into the playoff. We think, right? I could be wrong, and I could be very naive. They could go to 4 SEC, 4 Big Ten at a minimum, and the ACC is only guaranteed a 1 spot. The Big 12 gets 1 spot, and the other 2 are just at-larges that will always be SEC or Big Ten. But if we're going by the early returns, which is this 1 year, you did have both teams that made the ACC championship game in the playoff.
Yeah, at least if you're in the top 2 of the ACC, you have a shot. You have one
Correct.
game
Yep.
to go win it and make it in there, whereas you got to go Lane Kiffin and tweet all day long, the Friday after rivalry week, and campaign and politic for your team to get in with 4 losses or whatever.
And Miami blew it. Miami blew it. Miami had a chance in the last day of the season to be. They were playing for a spot in the playoff, and they blew it. But they were there. So that's what I'm saying. Like the avenue, like. So, the overriding point is we keep talking about how they have to compete with Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama and all those schools, Penn State, Michigan, whatever. Well, how's about getting somewhat close to Clemson? Because Clemson made the playoff, and they have the exact same obstacles that you do. And they don't get to use the portal because their coach is a weirdo. And they were still in the playoff, and they still won the ACC. And they were in a fourth-quarter game. They were in the game in the fourth quarter on the road in Texas. So let's get to that point. Because I will say this, I don't know that Florida State, if they're $30 million or less a year than the other conferences, yes, it's hard to sustain greatness. It's hard to think you're going to be a perennial in the Final Four national championship game every year. That doesn't seem likely. But you can be one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the ACC every year. There is absolutely no excuse not to be. And that doesn't change with this. So, theoretically, and I'm not, and I hope I said this last month. I've definitely been thinking that since I saw how the playoff shaped up and played out. Is like, yes, we want to go to the SEC, but it's not an easier route to win a national championship. I don't think. The easier route is the easiest route to get into the playoff, and that's in the ACC right now. That's not, I promise that's not sour grapes. I'm telling you again. For the last time, folks, I want to be in the SEC. I want to be in the Big Ten. Those are much more appealing than this conference from the last 30 years. I'm done with it. I'm tired of the conference. But everyone has to admit, in a 12-team playoff, you just saw SMU get into the playoff. And you saw Clemson with 3 losses get into the playoff. And Miami had a chance on the last day of the season to get into the playoff. They blew it. But that does mean that you can at least compete for a spot in the playoff. And once you get in the playoff, if you have a good quarterback, anything can happen.
In our defense, or go ahead, sorry, finish it, I'm sorry.
No, I was done.
In our defense, or Mike Norvell's defense, Florida State's had the best, 2023 was the best ACC team in the last, 4 years, though, probably, since Trevor Lawrence left?
Yeah.
So at least we have that on our side. Mm-hmm. And then the last thing from Dellinger, then this is like this is the rough thing to have read. I mean, these 2 graphs here kind of like, It says, those at Clemson and FSU have felt that if they are legally unhinged from their ACC grant of rights, there will be takers, but it is unlikely that any SEC or Big Ten school will agree to accept a reduction in their TV distribution to add any school. For the SEC, that is especially so given its footprint. The league already owns a foothold in South Carolina and in Florida. In order for the Big Ten and SEC to expand, they would likely need more money from their television partners. A lot more money. More than $100 million a year. So that's another part of this formula, too. It's not so much, all right, every SEC team is getting $65 million a year in TV revenue. Just get $65 million more and we'll join, like Florida State, and we're done. They're going to want, some powder as well to lift everybody. So it wouldn't be just like Florida State's going to come in at 65, what we've all been making. Now the new cost is we're all going to be making $70 million because Florida State's here. So if Florida State gets 70, then we all got to get $7 million ahead. And then, these numbers start ballooning. And then these are huge entities. It's ESPN, it's Disney, it's Fox. I think it's News Corp. I don't know if they own the Fox Sports thing, but I would imagine they do. So that's a big number.
Yeah, Tom,
is a big number.
It is a big number, but Tom brought this up on the show. What I don't understand is that Dellinger's saying that the SEC wouldn't want Florida State and Clemson because of the footprint. Well, okay, but the Big Ten doesn't have that. And that's exactly why they would want it. So don't throw the Big Ten and the SEC into the same paragraph as in their wants are the same. Yeah, no, are there needs? No, the SEC doesn't need a Florida team necessarily. They certainly don't need a South Carolina team. I mean, it's not like that's a big state for media rights anyway. But the Big Ten would love to get into the state of Florida. It was weird how he just pushed that aside. Like he said that the footprint was the reason the SEC didn't want to get to do business with Florida State and Clemson. Fine, but that is the exact reason the Big Ten would be interested. Plus, you're adding two of the marquee teams. Really, I know they're not free agents, quite clearly, but you're adding the two biggest entities out there, the two most appealing programs, content creators out there in Florida State and Clemson. If you were the Big Ten. And so it's like it seems short-sighted. Yes, they would, but that's what negotiating tables are for, and that's what the pitch to Fox would be. It's like, yes, we deserve more money because now look at this huge state we just delivered you. Look, we've given you the Southeast now. The one thing the Big Ten is missing is people in the Southeast truly caring about them. Well, now we gave you two of the 8 biggest brands in the Southeast are Big Ten schools. Yeah, that's worth a lot of money. I have no idea how much it's worth, but it's worth a lot. It's not something that like Northwestern would be like, well, no, we don't need. Well, you don't get to vote. Fox votes. Fox tells you, if Fox tells you guys to go run to the quad nude, you're running to the quad nude. That's how life works, man. Fox controls the money. So it's not just a Big Ten decision. It's a Fox decision. But going back to the overarching point of the Florida State staying in the ACC, again, this is ESPN pulling the strings. What does ESPN want? What do you think? That wasn't rhetorical. What do you think ESPN wants?
I think they like this agreement. They're not paying a lot of money. I mean, compared to what they're paying the SEC, the ACC, they're paying us pennies on the dollars to provide inventory, and there's some.
But don't you think they want? Do you think?
Well, Power League, they don't want to lose this property.
Correct.
It's like a listen to the Russillo show. Like you don't want to lose the asset. Like you don't want to let your free agent walk away without getting anything. So
but what is the asset?
Yeah, the asset's Florida State.
That's what I'm saying. So I think that's what we have to think about when we're thinking about these negotiations. ESPN does not want to lose Florida State and Clemson. They don't.
See, I don't know, though, but isn't that Dellinger's point, though, when the SEC talks about they already have that footprint? Because ESPN, I mean,
isn't that something that, like, people negotiating would say? Like, we don't need them. We don't want them. That's exactly what you would say. You try to drive the value down, but I don't think ESPN and ACC would make any concessions at all if they thought this was a foolproof lawsuit that they were going to win, or if they didn't care if they lost Florida State and Clemson. The ESPN desperately does not want to lose Florida State and Clemson because the only natural landing spot, in my opinion, right now, would be the Big Ten. So I feel like that would make so ESPN. I think ESPN would go not above and beyond as in they're paying them SEC money, but they would make sure in the negotiations to take care of our two main programs. And throw Miami again in there if you want. But you shouldn't. But go ahead. Take care of our three main football programs and make sure they're happy because we want them. Because if Miami ever gets to be really good, again, and consistently, that's big money for ESPN. And they do not want Miami to leave. By the way, Miami, you're allowed to sue too. You can sue in the state of Florida. It'd be good to have a co-plaintiff. But, yeah, so I think that the ESPN behind the scenes trying to make sure that Florida State and Clemson are happy. Now, I know you guys aren't, and you shouldn't be. We don't know any of the details, though. So before we get too upset, vitriolic, the sky is falling. Let's see what if anything we actually learn in great detail about if they drop the lawsuit, if they settle, what that settlement entails. Because it better be a lot more money. Otherwise, what was the point of any of this, right?
Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida, cptallybar.com. 2475 Appalachia Parkway. Daily lunch specials from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. for only $8.99. Delicious entrees. Delicious side dishes also available as part of the $8.99 lunch deal. Thursday night, Thursday night. Yeah, what am I talking about? Hope you enjoyed bingo, everybody. Hope you got there and made some dollar bills, y'all. Cash money up for grabs. There was 4 rounds, $250 up for grabs. If you missed out, it's okay. Put it on the calendar. And don't forget Tuesday, trivia night as well. What are we going to do without any football on this weekend, Corey? What are we going to do at the CP without any football? Any live music to entertain us? Get us?
I don't know. The Florida State basketball team will be on. So come up. I think that's a 2 p.m. game at Boston College on Saturday afternoon. So get there early. Make sure you get a table. And watch your Noles try to end the 3-game losing streak. But there's also good stuff that happens at the Corner Pocket. It's not just having to watch Florida State basketball. Cold beer, registered sausage bites, really good food. Don't know about live music, but let's just go ahead and say there will be on Friday night. And if there isn't, the jukebox still works.
2475 Appalachia Parkway, Corner Pocket, Bar and Grill. I don't know. Do we want to talk about basketball right now? Let's talk about, we got some more football to talk about. It's Wake Up Warchant. It's presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it, take it, sip. The juice. We got 4 dudes on Thursday. We got Stephon Thompson, linebacker, Syracuse, then Nebraska, now in Noles. We got Elijah Herring, linebacker, Tennessee, then Memphis, now he's a Noles. James Williams, JUCO, then Nebraska, now a Noles. Edge. We don't call people defensive ends anymore. Right. Maybe we do. Maybe we call them this next guy. Or Deamonte Diggs, I think, might be an interior guy. I actually think it's Deamonte. I thought at first it was Diamonte because there's an A there, but sounds like it might just be Deamonte.
Yeah.
All 4 of those guys, interesting stories. Obviously trying to peak this upcoming season now that they're at Florida State. I thought Diggs actually, that was the coolest kind of, you could tell he is coming from a different place of motivation than anybody else. Like he kept talking about where he's from. People usually don't make it this far in terms of like performing at such a high level. He had to start off at Youngstown State. I think he said, he might not have been a qualifier academically, ends up going to Youngstown State, finds a way to Coastal Carolina. Now he's at Florida State. And just, you can kind of, for me at least, I thought James Williams was probably the most entertaining interview of the entire day. But to me, like Diggs, there was like a visceral reaction I kind of had, like listening to his voice, his cadence when he just talked about like how far he's come. Kid was a high school wide receiver, and his coach just told him, hey man, put your hand in the dirt, you can make some money. And then he eventually listened to them, went from receiver to a defensive line. Now he's in Tallahassee. So that was, I thought, a cool thing. And it also kind of underscores, and I don't want to divert this conversation too much, Corey, but I was thinking about when I was leaving the interviews, I'm just like, man, I know theoretically the Alabama game is really not all that important because it's all about conference games and getting into Charlotte.
Sure.
But you think about all these guys are here. There's Diggs said that he doesn't feel like he arrived. I asked him, like, do you feel like you've arrived? He's like, oh, no, I'm still going to grind. But like, I think there's going to be so much emotion, so much energy, so much importance. I think that locker room is going to place on beating Alabama, that if they don't beat Alabama, they're not going to play another legitimate football game for about a month. So I wonder,
they get to heal the wounds.
Yeah.
You get to heal the wounds like that. It wasn't like you lose to Georgia Tech and then you just decide to take September off.
Right. So because I feel like these guys, like a James Williams, who's come all the way, halfway across the country to start over here, Diggs following, his journey and his hope to make it to the NFL and coming here and putting all his chips in the basket here. Just like, I wonder how they'll bounce back from that, but I guess we can maybe separate that, talk about it later. What did you take away from the four guys? Maybe you want to start with Diggs, or you want to go to Williams, who was the most interesting chatty chat interview you thought on Thursday?
Well, yeah, Williams is the most interesting, I think. Just his personality and, maybe one day we'll get to like the real issues he must have had, and Coach Knighton really helped him through some stuff, it sounds like. But yeah, I like Diggs too. They're completely different. They both play defensive line, but and they both were very unheralded coming out of high school. Again, it's almost back to the Norvell blueprint. Bunch of dudes that were unheralded coming out of high school. I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of tired of unheralded dudes coming out of high school. Get some. It's nice to like hark the Herald Angels sing. You want some heralded dudes around too. But I do like guys that have chips on their shoulders, man, that think they're good and haven't proven it yet. I like that. And Diggs, it's weird. I'll talk about Williams in a second. But what I liked about Diggs was, you don't want a team full of this. You don't want a team full of guys just talking about getting to the next level. But I like that my man is confident enough to think he's going to play in the NFL. That's his goal, and he's stating it. This is a guy that bet on himself, like Aslan said. I think he committed to Cincinnati out of high school as a wide receiver or a tight end. He said he was a late qualifier, so I guess by the time he actually earned the passing grade, Cincinnati had already moved on. So he committed to Youngstown State. Didn't do much there, quite honestly. I think he was a tight end, then switched and became a defensive lineman that didn't do a ton. Then Coastal Carolina. Now he's at Florida State. And you would think somebody like that would be like, yeah, I made it. I'm here. I got to Florida State. This is what I wanted. I get to play big boy football. Look at this cool practice field. Look at this stadium. We opened with Alabama. I made it. And he's talking about he wants to keep grinding because he's got his ultimate dream, his only dream that he really talked about was playing in the league. Now, again, you don't want 80 guys that only care about the NFL. Yeah. But you want a couple sprinkled in there. And you want guys, whether that's false confidence or real confidence, whether that's delusional or not, I've never seen the guy play. Youngstown to Coastal Carolina, that's not usually a pipeline to the NFL, but I would love to see what this guy can do. I just love the fact that that's a stated goal that he's willing to go public with to talk about. He's like unsolicited almost. Like I want to play in the league. My dream is to play in the league. I'm going to play this to get to the next level. I knew I had to come here to a place like this. It's like, again, you don't want everybody to use Florida State as a stepping stone to the league, but you want a few of them, and maybe he's good enough to get there. But I just love that mindset. He's betting on himself. He thinks he's good. He thinks he's an NFL player. I don't know how many guys that lined up for Florida State last year that were in the 2 deep, certainly in the 3 deep, that thought of themselves as NFL players, because they certainly didn't play like it.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I bet the starting 4 did. I mean,
great. I wonder if they still do. One's at LSU, one's at Oklahoma. I wonder if they think they were just being held back by what. So I just like it. The vibe you got from him was work, and I could be completely wrong. Again, it's words, folks. It was a 9-minute interview in January. It's words. I'll tell you more in March, but you just get the vibe came in the other two, the two linebackers. It's like they're going to work. They're old wily vets that have played linebacker in college football for 4 years each. So. They're workers. They're about their business. You don't play that position and play it this long at this level if you're not a hard worker and care. But I love to hear a guy like that, man. From Youngstown to Coastal to Florida State, that's a cool journey, and I hope it pays off for him. But I really liked hearing what he had to say.
How many more years until Alabama's no longer the gold standard in college football? He mentioned something about how cool it is to be at Florida State. It's a big deal. People back home look at Florida State like kind of like how people look at Alabama. Or he said something about
yes.
And it's like, well, we used to do some things around here too, and we'll see if Kalen DeBoer can keep that thing going. But yeah, back to James Williams. I think he of those 4 has the most upside, if you will. Like to your point, I think we know what we're going to get from Herring and Thompson. And we're more than excited. We're more than grateful for what they should produce based on what their careers have been so far. But James Williams is a guy that. He even admitted himself when he was a third down dime look guy where it was just like get the quarterback on the ground. That was his only charge last year. He hopes to be more of a every down situation, not situation, like an every down player. So if he can, he's obviously not going to do what he did last year in terms of his productivity in those spurts. But if he can kind of maintain somewhere along the lines of that, then you've got a guy that's probably going to compete for, I don't know, second team, third team, all ACC, maybe even first team if he really puts the nose to the grindstone. But that to me was the big standout. Although people seemingly were taken aback by his physique, Corey. They thought that he didn't look big enough to be a defensive end. Or an edge pass rusher. I didn't get that. I thought he looks.
Well, he's listed at like 6'6", 250, right?
Yeah,
260. I mean, he's a
250.
Big kid. Maybe it didn't show in the polo that he was wearing, but I assume. I mean, he made plays in Nebraska. Nebraska's defense was worlds better than Florida State's and played a tougher schedule. So I think he can handle it. Maybe, but I think the question maybe that they're alluding to, or the concern they might have about him, is a legitimate one. Not that he's not big enough to make plays. Is he big enough to be on the field all the time? Is he big enough to be an every down guy? I would think he would be. I think, as he talked about at length really about Nebraska's defense last year, they had a lot of guys. And there were times where he didn't play much at all because they have a lot of guys, and maybe it was the opposition they were playing. But they rolled some dudes in there that were all pretty good. Their defensive line was worlds better than Florida State. So you look at his numbers. I looked it up. He played 188 snaps last year. That's 15.7 snaps a game. 15.7 snaps a game my guy was on the field. So now you're asking him to play 50, 60? You're asking him to triple that number. Let's see if he can do it. I don't doubt him, but in the way he talks about working – and his relationship with Coach Knighton, and apparently Coach Knighton is out there working out at 4:30 a.m. every morning.
Shout out,
which is, hey, good for you, buddy. The early morning workouters, I don't get it, but you guys do you. I don't understand it. I could never just wake up to work out, but God bless you. But anyway, the fact that guy's like his North Star. Like the guy, there's just something there, obviously. He didn't go into great detail about exactly what the relationship entails. He did call him a father figure. He also said Tony White was very impactful, and they believed in him. But it's just, there's something there, obviously, where that guy means the world to him. And he was an NFL player for a long time and still works really hard, even though he's been out of the league now for 5 or 6 years. So the point being, I think James Williams' sole goal, and he said this, is to be one of the best players. He didn't say it this way, but he wants to be one of the best players in the league. He said that he wants to dominate Alabama. Mm-hmm. I love that too. He said, and his point is that Coach Knighton always tells him, everybody's lifting every day.
I love that. Yep.
Yeah, everybody lifts every day. It's kind of a message I try to give to my own son, who is not quite the athlete that James Williams is. But everybody lifts every day.
Everybody does tour of duty.
Everybody does tour of duty. He's like, but I want to be. He's like, I don't want to be everybody else. Yep. I don't want to be like everybody else. So what else are you doing to do that? And I think that message really resonates with James Williams. I think because they took a chance on him coming out of a community college in Iowa, White and Knighton, that he feels like he owes a lot to them. I think he will bust his butt for them, and therein he will bust his butt for the university. Which is great news because I didn't get to the other point I want to make. So he had 188 snaps. That's not a lot. It's 15.7 snaps per game. He was second on a very good defense in sacks. He was second in QB pressures. He was on the team. Mm-hmm. He was third in the country in QB hits. And he played 400 less snaps than the other guys.
Yeah, he played 142 pass rush snaps and had 31 pressures, so 22%.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really good.
And look, he had other guys that were, swallowing up some double teams, but this guy can play, and it's just a matter of if he can get strong enough to play every down. But I get it. The 188 is not ideal. You're like, okay, is he going to be willing to go? Is he going to be able to go from 188 snaps a game to what, 600? Is that even conceivable?
No, I mean.
But I will say this, because I looked it up. Jermaine Johnson in 2020, his final year at Georgia, 189 snaps.
Oh.
The next year, I believe he played 12,000. I don't quite remember the number, but he never came off the field. Now, I don't think James Williams is quite Jermaine Johnson, but Jermaine Johnson went from playing 189 snaps a game to playing every snap of every game. So it is doable. We'll see if, but that kid, the infusion of people like that and Diggs and those two linebackers, man, it's just, again, it's words and it's January. But these are grown men that have produced, and they aren't just happy to be here. They really do still have something to prove, and I like the vibe of the work and leadership from the guys we've talked to so far.
Jermaine Johnson played 736 snaps in 2021.
Holy cow. Has there ever been a bigger jump in the history of college? He went 600 more snaps. Now, I should say that the Georgia, he played 7 games in 2020 because of COVID and everything else. I think he might have missed a couple games with injuries. So he was averaging like 23 snaps a game. He didn't play 189 and 12 like James Williams did. But still, from 189 snaps in the season to, what'd you say?
736. He played in over 60 snaps in every game other than UMass, obviously.
There you go, Mike. Way to give him Mike and Adam giving him a little time off. Nice.
And he played 58 against Syracuse. Otherwise, 60 plus in every game. Played 70 against the Gators.
I wonder what the deal was with Syracuse. Maybe they didn't have the ball that much.
Yeah. All that running. What was it? Schrader? Thomas Schrader?
Just kept ripping off the runs.
Otherwise, I like the Stephon Thompson when I asked him about what is it about Tony White, because he was with Tony White at Syracuse when he showed up there, and that defense instantly turned around, and then followed him in Nebraska, and that defense instantly turned around. I'm like, what is it about either him or the scheme or whatever? And he talked about it. And I know this makes a lot of people excited because they felt that like last year this defense just did not play with a level of effort or aggressiveness, ferocity. And he said that, the big thing with Tony White, apparently it sounds like, other than he likes a lot of walkthroughs, which we should talk about that too. I got to get you on this, come to the dark side and embrace facility investments. But he mentioned that with Tony White, it's about, you're going to make mistakes early on. Just go fast, run as fast as you can, get to the ball, then we'll figure everything out afterwards, which, probably a pretty good way to learn to play defense, because you want your defenders to play fast and physical and with their hair on fire. So that's a cool thing.
Agreed. And I again, he's a vet. He and Herring both. I liked what I heard. Nothing stood out necessarily in the way they talked. I like that Herring has a relationship with the Tennessee guys. That's cool. But yeah, I just think overall it kind of goes back to the beginning of the show, Aslan. It's like, these guys are good players. They're not. These aren't bottom of the barrel, I hope they can play type guys. These guys can play. To what level they can reach, we don't know. But they are good college football players. And it's like, will Florida State ever get into a place, even if they stay in the ACC with no changes to their financial resources, will they ever be in a place where they just give up on this sport? Do you think? They would cut an entire academic department.
They're trying to earlier today. They're trying to get money loosened up from other things,
right?
Auxiliary cash.
They're offered, and I think the South Florida AD,
Michael Kelly. Yeah.
We're meeting with the Florida Board of Governors to try to get money freed up from the university side to help with that, paying for athletics.
But not taxpayer money.
Right. But we all know that athletics at the big boys,
it's the front porch court. They say it's the front porch of the university is the athletic.
But it's typically funded by fans, right? For the most part, it's typically funded by fans. It's booster clubs and stuff like that. They're trying to free up some actual university money, which the university makes a ton of. Again, I remember doing this in COVID. Go back and look up the salaries of all the professors at Florida State. Florida is a sunshine law state. It's all open record. It's all public record. You can Google and find how much your math professor makes a year. There's a lot of money to go around in elite universities, and Florida State is an elite public in academia, and Florida State is an elite public university now. So anyway, the point being though, isn't Florida State always going to do what it takes to be better than Purdue?
I would think so. Yeah.
But even if they don't, the way the current playoff is structured, and again, there are going to be sweeping changes to this, I'm sure. But as it stands right now, you don't even have to be on par with Ohio State and USC and Oregon. Although USC hasn't done it, I don't know why I included them. You just have to be better than SMU, and Miami, and Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech, because if you can get on par with Clemson. If you can get to the championship game, good chance. You're going to at least have a shot to get in the playoff, and you might have, even if you lose, you might get in the playoff. Like it's not a horrible place to be because Florida State will spin at all. They will do whatever they can because it's not like they just got a huge swath of money. That's a weird word to use. I'm struggling here at the end of the show, Aslan. My vocabulary's left me. They did not get funneled a bunch of money here in the last 6 months. Well, they just paid a lot for a new coaching staff, and they paid a lot for a new roster. I think that's going to continue. I think if you went in all these, because trust me, all these Big Ten and SEC schools are making gobs more money now than Florida State. That's been happening. It will continue to happen. The gap will continue to widen. And that's not good. You want to be more competitive with them. I get it. But I do think that Florida State will continue to pay a lot of money to make sure football is good. A lot of money. They understand the importance of it. Now, is it feasible? Don't know. But they're going to try their darndest no matter how the next 5 or 10 years goes. What I'm really worried about, and this is a good segue, is the other sports. Because they cannot compete. Especially maybe baseball they can because it's Florida State. But basketball, perhaps softball in a few years, it's going to be hard to maintain because, again, if Alabama offers Lonnie Alameda $4.5 million to be their softball coach just because they can, it's not like the softball team earns that much money. How do you compete with that? And why would she say no? That's a big concern of mine as we move forward. I think Florida State will always have a chance to be in the playoff and always be relevant in football. The other sports I really worry about because the SEC and Big Ten is just going to buy up all the good coaches and players.
We're back. Last segment. Wake Up Warchant. Vitamin Energy. Do it. VitaminEnergy.com. Hoops, ugly loss on Wednesday night against Virginia Tech. As Corey mentioned, they're back at it on the road this weekend at Boston College. They did fight back. It was a very gross, disgusting first half. Send your T's and P's to Irish O'Fell, who had to be there in the flesh, having his retinas burned out by it. But, I mean, they cut it to like a 7-6 point game feels like there in the second half. But ultimately, Virginia Tech pulled away late. And has Ham been wearing suits again?
Did he wear a suit? I didn't see.
He did the whole t-shirt blazer thing. That's like vintage. Leonard's got the boys rolling outfit. But I mean, what's left to say? I mean, I'm not throwing in the towel, but I'm kind of throwing in the towel. But I don't know, man. I guess don't let the Noles get hot in Charlotte or New York, wherever the hell the ACC tournament's going to be, because at this point, that's the only path to doing something crazy and fun for what's now going to probably be a very rough winter on the hardwood for the Noles.
Yeah, it's a wrap on this season for any, still watch the games if you're interested. But yeah, they have no chance of getting to the tournament. That's the worst loss of the season, and it's not close. What they had been doing until this recent 3-game losing streak is beating the teams they were supposed to beat and then losing to good ones, which isn't a recipe to get in the tournament, but it's a recipe to at least be intrigued. But now they lose at home to a bad Virginia Tech team. It's their third loss, just like they lost at a bad Cal team who was. I know it was they were on the road, but Cal didn't have their best player. Yeah, man, and that was disgusting. I don't. People might want to say they quit or they gave up. I don't in the first half. I don't think you can do. They just can't shoot. They can't. They were 6 of 28 in the first half, man. 6 of 28. Like, what in the world? And then, yeah, when they get down 20, all of a sudden it gets a little easier to play because there's not as much pressure, and maybe the team that's guarding you isn't guarding you so tight, and it frees you up, and you can start making some shots and get some confidence that way. And then I think they went and scored, I don't know what they scored, 50 points in the second half. But, great. Why don't you do it when it matters? And again, they just, Watkins and Ewan had his worst game, I think, since he's been here. I think he made 1 basket. Well, he had 2 points. That's crazy. 2 points and 3 rebounds.
1 of 4.
Our man Justin Thomas finally made a basket. So he has 2. He's now scored 2 points total in the last 3 games, and he's played 25 minutes in each of them, at least 25 minutes in each of them. So yeah, man, they
Nitu had a nice coast to coast finish.
Great. Yeah, he scored 2 points.
That was a bucket.
He scored 2 points. So yeah, they're not any good. And then look, the calendar is almost turned to February. That means that we're getting close to March, which means I think we're on a march to the end of the Leonard Hamilton era. I don't know how or why you would, unless they go on a crazy run, that this would continue. I just don't know how or why. There's no...
Kevin Keats was on his way out in Raleigh, and then look what happened to the Wolfpack, you know?
Was he on his way out?
I think so. Yeah, he was.
But I guess the difference is I doubt he was on the last year of his contract.
Yeah.
Like that always adds something to it. Number one, it's Leonard's age. He's whatever. I always forget. He's 77 or so. But the fact that this is the last year of his contract.
Yeah.
So are you going to re-up him?
Oh no.
After this? It just wouldn't make sense. And if you do, in my opinion, as we sit here right now, and for the millionth time, I love Leonard Hamilton as a human being, and some of my best moments being a sports reporter / podcaster have been covering his basketball program. They have given me great joy over the years, and that's not sarcasm. I just appreciate who he is as a person and what his program has done. It would make no sense. What would you be telling your fans if you ran this back? We're going to give him one more year so he can go. Like, no, man, this is 4 straight years of missing the tournament. It's, a few of those years have been absolute embarrassments. This seems to be turning into one because you have what I think is a decently talented team that goes out there and plays like that on a Wednesday night. A must-win game, kind of, to a team that's like 180th in the net, and you score, what they have at half, 15? It's insanity. It's insanity. Yeah. And it's like, it's time for something else. It's time for something else. My opinion doesn't matter at all. There are other things that go into it. I also don't think I'm alone. I also don't think I'm going on a limb to say that it's not like you have to go pay him a buyout of $5 million. That's a different conversation. There's no buyout owed. You get out scot-free. You tell him thank you. Maybe you give him a going-away present of some money. And I'm not being facetious there. What are we watching? And again, I know there's not a lot. I was going to say he's facing other teams that probably have higher, better NIL structures than he does. Virginia Tech ain't one of them. Yeah. Neither is Cal. And he lost to both of them. So what are we doing here at this point? It's just, unless something changes, and again, that's a big caveat because there's 2 months left. There's a lot of basketball to be played. But as it stands right now, as this team continues to spiral, seemingly. I mean, this is just an ugly stretch culminated with that awful game. It's hard to imagine that he will be the head coach next year. And as much as I like him, I don't think and as much as a lot of people like him, I don't think that's going to make a lot of people sad. He has been wonderful for this program. It seems like it might be time to move on.
Yeah, no, it's well said. Can't really add anything that.
But I hope they prove us wrong, right, Aslan?
Yeah, man.
Go win Saturday against Boston College. Get some. I mean, look, you go beat Duke at Duke. All this that eliminates the Virginia Tech loss. And I will say this about Leonard's teams: they do always kind of find a way to respond when they have any sort of talent at all. Unlike a couple years ago when all their players were hurt, they do find a way to respond. And this was, they responded in that game. Like that was they were embarrassed. That was a humiliating first half. They came out and at least looked like a competent basketball team. So they did respond, which was good to see. Can they actually respond and go win a game, and then 2 games, and then 3 games? So I want to see what the response is because that dude's tough. Most of you know his life story. You know what he's been through. He is not a guy that suffers softness. And so I would love to see how hard his team plays on Saturday. If they go out and look like they did against Stanford on Saturday against Boston College, well, then there's no hope. But there is a chance they go out and really play well and play hard, and then all of a sudden at least you feel decent about things again, and maybe it can be turned around.
On the way out, Corey Clark, thoughts on LSU Brian Kelly becoming the next Broken Coaches Repair Society president after Nick Saban hung up his whistle. I think earlier in the week he hired Lance Guidry, who's the deposed defensive coordinator from Miami. Then on Wednesday, it finally became official. He hired the Alex Atkins, run game coordinator and tight ends coach.
All right.
So I don't know how the whole show cause that he dealt with from the recruiting fiasco, but I thought he was going to maybe be an analyst, but I guess perhaps he'll be one of the coaches that doesn't go off campus to recruit.
There's no limit to that anymore, right? On field, you can have as many on field coaches as you want, right?
But still, though, I mean, the show cause thing though is like you have to describe to the NCAA like why this guy's being hired and why it's not.
Oh, I thought he had
like
already
unethical.
served that, and that was part of the suspension at the beginning of last year.
I don't think so. No,
but either way, congrats to Alex. That sounded. I was not being sarcastic, I promise. Congrats to him. Enjoyed our conversations with that guy for 5 years, and I hope he. I definitely think he'll have better linemen to work with than he did this past year.
Yeah,
but that's all his fault. He's the one that brought those people in, so that's his fault. I'm just saying he'll probably have better people to work with.
Yeah. Run game coordinator and tight ends coach.
Okay.
So
is the Taylor kid back for them, or is he leaving?
I don't even know who the Taylor kid is.
I thought, didn't they have like Jason Taylor's son that was the tight end?
Oh, Mason Taylor, the tight end?
Yeah.
I think so. I think his true freshman year was the year in the Dome.
Okay, well, so he gets
the
to
Shaheem
coach
Brown game.
He gets to coach an all-SEC tight end.
Good call.
That's not. There you go, Alex.
Well,
I'm sure LSU has a couple good linemen he can coach.
Could be wrong. I have been wrong before. He 2022 SEC Freshman of the Week. I don't think he redshirted. Yeah, so his first season was 2022. So he might have. I don't know. I should let me.
Got a tight ends coach.
Well, people are yelling at us, so he might have declared. I mean, because he played 3 years, so 2022, 23, and 24.
Oh yeah, he probably. Yeah, I was thinking, golly, God, where does the time go? Aslan?
He did declare for the draft. So
sorry, Alex.
Whoop,
gonna have to coach somebody else. Maybe LSU has some talent on that roster for once.
All righty. That's a wrap for the week, everybody. But we got the Jeff Cameron Show coming up 1 to 4 o'clock. Check out warchant.com for the latest analysis.
Especially on the conference stuff.
Yes.
I wrote a story on James Williams. It's up there. It's good. He's very, very interesting. Go watch those videos. But, man, Ira and Gene will have you up to date. They will talk to people that know from Florida State's side. Not from ESPN and Bristol and Dellinger, the Yahoo side, but from Florida State's side, they'll float out some things that might make us feel better about an impending settlement if there is one. So get on the message boards.
Yeah. Noles now number 19 in the country for that 2025 signing class after Tylen Lee from Milton got bumped up. I'm sorry, Pace High got bumped up to a 5-star.
Yeah, how about that? Nice. I wonder if he'll play some. And then I saw some kid that was on my Twitter feed that was a 2026 kid that reclassified to 2025, and Florida State's in his final 3 or something.
What?
So got that going. I think there's a DN that might be committing, or at least I shouldn't say that. I have literally no idea, but he's the Mathis kid, right?
Okay. Zahir Mathis. I think went to the same high school as my guy Nasir Upshur.
Oh, I thought he was from Philadelphia.
Yeah, Zahir Mathis is from Philadelphia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, man.
Oh, all right. It's a pipeline, man.
Let's go.
Diggs is from Pennsylvania, I think.
Yeah.
So they might have a couple more signees here. It might actually be a kind of exciting. Well, not exciting, but sort of interesting signing day number 2 coming up. I guess that's on Wednesday, right? Yeah. It's Wednesday, first Wednesday in February.
Javari Flowers, that's the cornerback that reclassified, 4-star from Miami Northwestern. So,
come and get some, Javari.
He's Corey.
Yeah.
Come give him some, Javari. And I'm Aslan. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy.